Hi, this is Tom Soane and welcome to the Anonymous Landlord. And today I'm going to give you landlords 3 ways, in fact, all property investors, landlords, and if you're going to get into property investing, same for you. I'm going to give you 3 ways that you can get back every single penny that you ever spend on your property, on your rental property. And this will include whether you're about to buy a rental property, whether you've got a rental property. This is a clear and easy method, or 3 clear and easy methods to get back all of your money and make a profit as well. So hopefully I'm going to describe to you everything you need to do, or how much you need to spend on improving the property, how much you need to spend on adding to the property, how much you need to spend on refurbishments without losing any money. And that's the key. We don't need to lose any money. We're property investors, right? So the idea for this is to be able to help all landlords calculate correctly and change the way you think about your own property investment. Because whether you like it or not, you are a property investor. So all landlords need to start calculating correctly and turn their minds into the way of a property investor. Now, I'm not talking about general repairs and general maintenance here. I'm talking about actual property improvements and refurbishments and additions and extensions and loft conversions and adding bedrooms and all of those things. You need to understand how much you should spend and how you can get all of your money back and make a profit without losing any money. So first of all, we're all bound by the same rule in money to do with property, in that if you're going to refinance a property or remortgage a property, you can only refinance or remortgage up to 75% of the value of the property, right? I think we all should know that by now. If anyone's new to property investing, that is the rule that we're all bound by. Now, that's at the time of doing this recording. Sometimes mortgage lenders will change this up a little bit, depending on the borrower, depending on the property. But generally speaking, if you're going to refinance a property, you can only borrow up to 75%. So we're all bound by that rule. So tip number 1 is only spend up to 75% of the increased value that you're going to add. So for an example, you might be thinking about doing a loft conversion to add some bedrooms. That's going to increase the value. You might be thinking of building an extension at the back so you can have a big open plan kitchen diner. That's going to add value. Or you might be putting a bathroom downstairs so you can add a bedroom upstairs. That's going to increase the value. Conservatories increase value. If the property's run down, complete wreck, then refurbishments are going to increase the value. But let me give you an example here. So we're going to talk some numbers now, and hopefully you stick with me on it. But it really is a get your head around this calculation. So for an example, if you've got a property right now that's worth £100,000, I'm just using a nice easy round number for you, and you add a bedroom, right? So maybe you add an extension, and you're going to increase the value of your property by £10,000. So now after that extension, the value of the property is worth £110,000. Then technically, and according to tip number 1, don't spend any more than £7,500. Now that's the ideal. If you're going to add an extension, don't spend more than £7,500 on the extension. Now, why is that? Well, that's because you can only withdraw 75% of the total property value, which means you can only withdraw 75% of the increase in value, right? So if you're going to increase the value by 10 grand, don't spend any more than 7.5 grand. That's ideal. That's the dream. Get your money back out. That's it. But you haven't made a profit. And also that only works if it's just going to be a one-time transaction. We're investors. We want to make profit first of all, and we want to secure the future growth of our property, right? Simple as that. So yeah, in an ideal scenario, if you're going to increase the value by £10,000, don't spend more than £7,500 on that property. That's a quick way not to lose any money, but we've got to make profit. So how are we going to do that? Well, tip number 2 is to ensure that you get your money back in 2 years at least. Now, why am I saying that? Well, most mortgage deals are 2 or 5 years. Now, there are other mortgage deals around. That's normally what a fixed rate mortgage deal would be, 2 years or 5 years. There are in between, and you can have other things like variable rates, tracker mortgages, all different types of mortgages. But generally speaking, if you've got a mortgage deal over 2 years, you know that you can remortgage after 2 years, right? So let's use that same example where we've got a property that's worth £100,000. We've increased the value to £110,000, but it's cost us £10,000 to do the job. Now, technically, we're down 2.5 grand because you can only refinance 75%, right? So we've got to get that 2.5 grand back, but we also want to make profit on that too. So let's do that same thing, right? So we've got that same property. It's worth £110,000 now because you've added an extension, but it cost you £10,000. So now we need to make sure that we're going to be able to refinance through the appreciation and the growth in value of the property over time. Now, we're going to use a rough calculation here to keep it simple. But let's say over 2 years, the property value has increased by 6%, 3% per year. So your extension has cost you 10,000. Now the value of the property is 110,000 because you've increased the value by 10,000. But the appreciation over 2 years is going to take the property value up to about 116,000. There or thereabouts. It's actually going to be something like 116,600 or something like that. But I'm working this out off the top of my head, so hopefully it makes sense. But we can take out 75% of that, if you remember. So now we're able to take out 12,000 of that increase in value. So we've increased the value over 2 years by 16,000, and we're able to take out 12,000. So there's a little bit of profit. So you get your money back, you got your £10,000, but you've also got another 2 grand in profit. But there's more. We can make more profit here. Because where are we right now? So we've got now a property over 2 years. We've got a property that's now worth 116,000 rather than what it would have been if we hadn't have improved it. But we're going to make a bit more profit over that time as well. Now, if you add value to a property that you rent out, then technically you should be also increasing the value of the rent, right? Seems fair enough. And I'd expect if you're going to add 10 grand worth of value by adding an extension or adding a bedroom or something like that, then you should be able to increase the value of the rent by, I don't know, what, say 50 quid? That'll do it, wouldn't it? If you've added a bedroom in my area, that's about 50 quid. What's the calculation? It's probably going to be something like, I don't know, 4%. If you can increase the rent by about 4 or 5%, perhaps, something like that. Let's say 4%. I think that's a fair figure. But if you can increase the rent by 4%, in my area, that'll be about 50 quid. So what we're also going to get, bear in mind, we've made 2 grand profit, but we're also going to get £1,200 in additional rent profit over the next 2 years. So now where are we? What we've done is we've made profit of £2,000, plus we've made another £1,200 in rent profit as well, and we've got our money back and everybody's happy. So really what we've done is calculated our budget as well accidentally. So if we're going to increase that value, then our budget for that property, let's work this out together, right? So you now know that you can take out of the property 12 grand in 2 years' time because you've increased the value by 10,000 quid and you've got appreciation of the property as well. So you know you can withdraw about 12 grand from the property. Awesome. But we want to make our target yield, don't we? We want to know that's not the budget. The budget isn't 13,200 or whatever we've decided there. Yeah, 12 grand plus £1,200. We want to make our target yield as well. So we set the budget by deducting the profit that we want to make. So if the total budget is £13,200, but we want to make a certain yield on that money, now for me, my minimum target yield is 15% per year. So over the course of 2 years, that's 30%, right? So I calculate that as £13,200 is the total. Take away my profit requirement, which is about 4,000 quid, something like that. So the budget for the entire job is £9,200. And I hope that makes sense, because I know that sometimes you go through these numbers and it gets a bit confusing to sort of absorb it, especially on a Friday morning. So what we now understand is that if we're going to, let's just say we're going to add a bedroom to our property, we know that we can generate total returns of 13,200. And if we're going to make profit of, in my case, 15% per year, then we know that the budget for that job is £9,200. And just to recap that, I'm going to try and recap it to try and make it a bit simpler. If we know that over the course of 2 years, through the additional rent profit, the increase in value that we can refinance 75% of in 2 years' time, if we do all of that and the appreciation as well, and we're going to get £13,200 back in total. Now, we need to make our yield on that. We need to make our profit margin there of minus 15% per year. So that's 30% over 2 years, which is about £4,000. So therefore, the budget for that job is £9,200. Now, if you can do that same calculation for anything and any opportunities you have to increase the value of your property and stick to that budget, you will always be investing. You'll always make your 15%. You'll always be thinking like an investor, and that's the way to do it. Every single penny that you ever spend on your property has to be an investment. Now, if you follow my podcast, by the way, The Anonymous Landlord, or you listen to my other stuff, then you can now add to this information that I've just given you there, because on my podcast, I talk about how to calculate your maintenance, your management costs, your compliance costs, all of those things. So this here, what I'm talking to you about now, is pure profit, absolute pure profit. And remember, you could do this over a longer term. I'm talking about 2-year mortgages here. You could do this whole same thing over 5 years, 10 years, whatever it may be, whatever you're comfortable with. But just make sure, A, you're sticking to the rule. You can only withdraw up to 75% of the value of the property. Tip number two, make sure you get your money back during that time between when you've spent the money and when you're able to refinance. And tip number 3 is get that money back from the increased rent profit. So, and also tip number 4, I suppose there's 4 tips here, not 3, but tip number 4 is to always make sure you're including your own yield target. Like I say, mine's 15% per year minimum. If I can do more than that, then obviously I'm happy. So everything is an investment. And I wanted to end by saying that you can apply this same rule for life. For everything you do with finance and money in life, you can apply this same rule to. The rule is quite simple here, actually. You don't lose money. You make sure you make your money work for you. And every single penny that you invest is an investment. So therefore, you will always be making money. It doesn't matter if you're only making a little bit of money, as long as your money is working for you. That's the key. Every single pound that you spend on everything has to be working for you. And that's how the best investors think. And so I'm trying to put that into a property scenario here. And I think I've done that. Hope so. Anyway, let me know. But so remember, set a target, calculate that target, and calculate your target yield. And don't deviate from that. Don't accept losing money. So look, I hope that helps. Hey, you can do some fun stuff with this with your kids as well. I do it with my boys, or actually my eldest boy, because my youngest boy is too young at the moment. But my eldest boy is nearly 5, and we're starting to do things about making his money work for him. And I did this little exercise where, I say it's an exercise, it was a little fun thing, where I gave him £1 and he went and got 3 lollipops out of a machine. And then he asked me for another £1. So the lesson I taught him was, well, yeah, I'll give you one more £1, but you give me 2 of your lollipops. And he thought about it for a while, and he went, okay, because then I've got £1 and a lollipop. And my heart nearly melted. I could have just died right there. But that's a little lesson I do with my kids, and that's all about this, right? It's about making your money work for you and all of us being investors. So I'm going to wrap that up, and I am going to say my little sign-off tagline thing that to be the best version of yourself at one thing, you should be the best version of yourselves at everything. My name's Tom Soane, and this is The Anonymous Landlord.